an unresolved historical grievance, and I think that we've heard that just in terms of how the audience has responded. But I feel that a deep irony is that a lot of the concessions that the ANC fought for in the context of our political transition, it has chosen not to use those powers, the powers to expropriate, to pay compensation other than market value. So for some reason, the concessions that were fought very hard for have not really been used. But I think it is an economic issue. I think that it's easy just to say, well, we just need to do more land reform. There's something else at stake here that has not been clarified, and that is, while we have been going very slowly along the road of land reform, a very profound shift has happened that is anti-poor in South Africa, and that is we've globalized our agricultural sector, we have liberalized our economy, and now people, farm workers in places like Durance where we are today, are affected not only by the fact that there are workers in a commercial farm, but they're subject to the vagaries of global capitalism. So I think that the big question that we haven't resolved, and that the ANC has not resolved, Minister, is what is the alternative vision?
Yeah.
Are we just going to take commercial farms and transfer them from one white owner to one black owner? Because that's primarily what is happening under the current proactive land acquisition strategy. Or are we going to break them up?
Let's talk about what that vision is. I mean, if you had to address the people of Durance who are sitting with us in this room, what is it? Is it land or is it money in their pockets?
She's right at the macro level. The nature of the positions that were adopted in the past created the current economic problems that we're confronting. It's the chickens coming home to roost. And so part of the call for a shift towards a smallholder farm, for example, support, so that you do not overemphasize the commercial part of it whilst you support it. It's a crucial part of the shift that she's talking about we need to go into. That's what we are moving towards. In other words, there's recognition that without providing critical support in that area, we will not be able to go that route.
The people in this room, they don't want you here, you passing the buck to the global economy.
No.
Yes, it has an impact, but right now, they were asking to move from 69 Rand a day to 150 Rand a day because they simply cannot afford to eat. What do you say to them?
You see, that is the relationship on the farm. Why is it being passed on to the government?
Minister, wait, Theo.
No, let me answer.
I will let you finish. I will let you finish that point.
Yes, let me finish.
I do need to ask him that question because people are asking that possibly that question. And how would you respond to the minister?
70 Rand a day on a farm is pretty little. Every farmer would acknowledge that. But that is what is affordable. 6 years ago, we still had a thriving tea industry in South Africa. And we produced a lot of the coffee we consume ourselves. But we could simply not compete with the labor input in Malawi, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and today, we don't make one bag of tea in this country.
Alright, welcome back guys to this particular platform. This is Late. You can call me Late in this particular platform. Now, is that true? South Africa is not making even a bag of tea as we speak. I stand corrected, but also your input is also, will be taken in. But again, who owns the land in South Africa and who should be given that particular mandate of, regulating land? Is it the national government or the individual farmers? And in this particular context, those ones who are claiming that, you see what, this is something that was taken from us, our forefathers, and from the colonizers. They took it from us. It was snatched from us. You've just had that one a couple of few seconds or few minutes ago, if you're following up to this particular very end. Now, and once that one is given back, so who is going to be freely handing in? And this is my piece of land, this is my 5, 10, 20 acres, and now you can take it. Who is ready to do that one in South Africa? Number two, and who is ready to take it, and how should there be like a program, like a systematic way of doing things in South Africa? I propose, but again I do stand corrected, that you see the land needs to be a possession owned by the government, and then leased out to useful, productive purposes out there. If someone comes, says that, hey, I need 10 acres of land in such and such an area, and this is what exactly I'm going to do there, and like that one. And then over a given period of time, and once you're done, we go renew that one, and the whole process continues so that everybody is accommodated in South Africa. Now, given the fact that the demographics of South Africa are, to a certain point whereby, you cannot ascertain, like it's everybody needs the piece of the cake. But the best way to do that one is, first of all, own the cake, and then start giving it out in a more structured, systematic manner. I do stand corrected, guys. And if in case I've stepped on your toes, keep on watching and let's just listen together, and then let's see the sentiments and hear the sentiments of this particular gentleman. What exactly do they have to say towards the end of it? And then, of course, at the end of it, I'll come back again with more sentiments of what they sing. Stay put. Let's watch together.
Labor-intensive stuff like tomatoes, baby vegetables, export fruit for that matter, is simply going to crawl across our borders. And we are going to lose their jobs if the jobs are not market related. And that is what farmers can afford. And many of our members in Agri-SA who are successful beneficiaries of land reform, they are suffer for exactly that reason. There's not enough profit, and the land which they got becomes poverty traps. If you cannot farm profitably, you cannot farm.
Angela, he's got a point, but it is a hard pill to swallow, but there's a point.
Everybody on earth, by the way, protects their agricultural sector. The biggest thing that they fight in America and the Europeans in the World Trade Organization is protection of the agricultural economy. Our government does not do that. That's the first thing. But what will they be protecting? Slavery. This is the point. The key point here is the agricultural sector in South Africa is based on slavery. And the ANC government has legislated that slavery. This is the problem that you see in the Durance. So before we can talk about wages, let us go first to address the land question. Let farm workers have their own land when they can make a choice whether I want to work for that guy or not. And by the way, Siki, we shall not wish. By the way, it is the idea that we must buy our land. We didn't buy. This man says must buy our land, stolen land. This we shall not do. There is no business if I bet or stolen land.
When we return, we ask whether South Africa might actually benefit from a Zimbabwe-style land reform program. You're watching The Big Debate.
Security is something we really have to get rid of. A successful commercial farm does not necessarily contribute to food security. We're here in a wine-growing area. What does wine do for our food security? Theo de Jager is busy with forestry. They don't make their decisions based on our food security. They make it based on profit.
White people, when they came here, they came with the dromedaries, Rachel and Hudewu. And those vessels, they never carried any land. And it's so funny that you even protect them. What are you doing? What impression do you give to your people? Why are you killing your people, bruh?
Meneer ek wil maar net vir u vra, u het net gesê mense kry R70 'n dag en dit is genoeg vir hulle. As u daai R70 elke maand teen die einde van die maand gaan u oorleef. En ons mense kry nie R70 'n dag nie. Hulle kry R55 'n dag in die Rosenwil area. Asseblief, u moet u se feite reg hê.
A free for all is not going to benefit anybody. It's going to be to the detriment of every single person, including the people who get land.
Welcome back to the big debate on land taking place here in the Durance in the Western Cape. Now, land reform in Zimbabwe has been criticized across the world for turning that country from a bread basket to a basket case. But is that the full story? Recently, when it comes to food security.
My family is still in Zimbabwe. They no longer farm there. But we have seen how that currency has lost 99% of its value. How runaway inflation has really impoverished people. how they had to run across the border to work in South Africa. Many of them today work on our farms. Although they are pretty well trained, Zimbabwe did something right with education. And yet, nothing could save that economy. And today, their agricultural production output is so much down. And I know that with PLAS, they had recently put a paper out where they feel that Zimbabwe has actually accomplished something with improved production output. But it is not a fraction from what it used to be in the days when Zimbabwe was still the envy of the world's cattle industry. Should something like that happen in South Africa, there is no future for any one of us. Zimbabwe today has nothing to be proud of.
Ben Cousins, would you agree that Zimbabwe is a basket case? You've been looking at some studies that seem to show a different picture.
There's accumulating evidence that land reform in Zimbabwe is not a disaster. Particularly on the small-scale A1 farms, production is going up. In some crops, production has exceeded that which it was before 2000. For example, cotton is 130% of what it was before. Groundnuts are up, sorghum is up. Tobacco has been increasing in recent years. It's up to 70% of what it used to be. Maize production is 30% down on what it was in the 1990s. That's partly because of shortages of inputs and partly because of drought. So yes, there have been real positives. There were negatives as well. For example, some large-scale commercial farming crops have declined. For example, horticulture. Yeah. And foreign exchange isn't being earned at the same extent it was before. There were human rights abuses. There was disinvestment. But the decline of the Zimbabwean economy is not due solely to land reform. And the key lesson for South Africa is that we must get the benefits of land reform without the costs, which the Zimbabwe situation.
Which is the Zimbabwe. Andile, you've said in the past that if you were given a farm, you probably wouldn't farm it. So I've got to ask the question, because there is the point about food security. So we give you a farm, you sit on it, or we give people farms and they don't actually farm. Who's going to produce our food?
In fact, the biggest positive is not the economic that the Professor Kazan has mentioned. It is the fact that 4,000 white people owned 80% of Zimbabwe. That has changed. Now we have more than 300,000 families sitting on that land. It means the Zimbabwean people have returned their country back to them, and they have that what we can call real freedom. This is the biggest benefit of that land reform process.
But the people he's talking about are farming. I'm asking about those people in South Africa who don't not necessarily want to own a farm.
No, absolutely. The point is to understand what you're doing with land reform. You're not giving land necessarily just for economic reason. You are addressing a historical injustice. When they stole our land, by the way, here, they were not saying, oh, we're taking your land because you're being unproductive. They destroyed the productive systems of our people. So we want that land back.
But we still need to eat. Let's address my question, because you need to eat, I need to eat.
No, absolutely. By the way, from Zimbabwe, we know you give people land. Already they'll start producing, but you must do something else. Our government is totally failing. Support the people on land, otherwise you're setting up for failure. That's what you need to do.
Theo, I have to ask you this question on food security. Absolutely a very important issue. But food security for whom? Because if you go to Woolies and you go to Pick and Pay, those shelves are full. But some of the people in this room cannot afford to go to Woolies and go to Pick and Pay. Shouldn't we be putting money in their pockets so that they can go and buy and access the food at Pick and Pay and Woolies, or land then to grow the food?
Food security does not mean that you need to produce everything you consume, or for that matter, consume everything you produce. It means that you produce enough of that in which you have a competitive advantage, so that there is money available to buy that which you cannot competitively produce. There's a distinction must be made between household food security, with which we have a problem in certain areas of South Africa, and national food security. And let's be very clear about this. In a country where more and more people every day are dependent on food from shelves, there is no way you can provide through smallholder farming. There you need massive scale, large scale farming to produce for that. But yes, where people live in rural areas, there should be opportunities, and there must be, like in the rest of Africa and in the rest of the Southern Hemisphere, where people can produce for themselves. but they will never be able to produce everything they need for themselves.
Beatrice, it's a bit romantic, right, to think that everybody can go and produce food, right? So if the minister took Theo's land and gave it to you, what guarantee do we have that you're actually not going to mess it up?
I don't think we can give guarantees, because in many instances we have that government has done small minorities of land reform where they have given land to people, but they have never built the capacity of the people and make sure that those people have resources as the white commercial farmers have.
Let me ask the people in the room. If the minister were to take the farms and give them over to you, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to farm? Who wants to talk to me? I'm going to go up there.
I'm one of the farm owners of Itemba, which means hope. We've got about 175 farmers on that farm. Nobody is assisting us. We are doing our own farming. We don't get any help from the government. The government even come there and cut our water, so we can't supply water to our animals, but we're still farming. The minister here does not know what he's talking about. We are farming on the white man's farm. Why can't we? And we're still farming on our own land. Although we took that land, we took it by force because we got no other alternative. Currently, we are supplying in the Western Cape, in Easter River, we're supplying the people in that area with food from our farms. And we're farming on 60 by 35 meters of land, and we're 175 farmers there, and we are making a success, although we're struggling.
Minister, again, the Vukuzenzele spirit we were talking about, they're doing it on their own without support.
Assuming we wanted to support them, let's say we had to support them, how would we use the basis for supporting them if required the money we have now, the recapitalization and development program that we have? We have over 400 farms that we are supporting as we speak today. All right, and all over the country, sir. All over the country, and no, hang on.
Let's give the minister a chance to finish the statement. No. If he can't finish the statement, then we can't respond to him. Everyone in the room will get a chance.
To be able to support them, which is what we would like to do, we would have to regularize that first.
Okay. But if you had gotten the land to them,
do you see the problem
and not sitting at 8%.
In other words, he says they occupied it by force. So if we go and support that, so we have to, no, what we are saying is that if it is not legal as we speak now, it is not.
Just give the minister a chance to respond, please. Otherwise, this is going to deteriorate. Minister, how are we going to resolve it then? Because as you can see, people are saying enough is enough. We want to do this. What do you think we need to do?
What we need to do is very clear. It's very clear. You see, there's a whole range of opportunities. The point I was trying to make earlier on is that there's a lot of things, both that business, labor, in other words, workers themselves, showing initiative, creating, identifying opportunities for us to go in to support those initiatives. The point we are making is that in instances where people take it by force, unfortunately, government operates by law.
Okay. Ruth, let me ask you this question, because you mentioned a very important word a little bit earlier, and that was there's a lot of emotion in this debate. It makes it very difficult to actually do what you were saying a little bit earlier, and that's look at the key problems.
Well, I think that there have been different problems over time, and we're talking about land reform as if it's all one thing and we agree what it looks like. In fact, we've had 3 quite different land reform programs since '94. In the first 5 years, we had a program that was for the poor. It was only for the poor, and the aim was to give people a place that they could call their own. But in the second period, from 2000 or so onwards under Mbeki, there was a new land reform program which was focused on black economic empowerment, and the aim there was to create black capitalist farmers to work alongside the white commercial farming class. And this was a model of course, is a more attractive model for white commercial farmers who want black counterparts. But it doesn't address the kinds of concerns that have been expressed by many of the workers in this room, because essentially the farm owner changes, but the same labor conditions continue in its place. And in the third period, since about 2006, we've had a proactive land acquisition strategy where the state is now buying the land itself And this, I think, is very important because this example has shown us that when the state is the owner, it is not always going to act in the best interests of the poor. In this case, the state as a landlord is protecting its own property rights against people who would like to use that land. So now we see the state buying whole commercial farms and making them available on lease to black commercial farmers. So even if we do more land reform, even if we were to meet the 30% target, even if we were to achieve all of those targets, would it change the situation of many people here? I think not. So that's why I think that we need to draw our attention to a very crucial issue which goes beyond race. And it's a question of what is the class agenda of land reform.
Is there a trade-off here, Minister? What do you want to do? Do you want to create black capitalist, commercial farmers on the one hand, or do you want to help the poor? What do you want to do exactly? It goes back to the vision.
No, our responsibility is to the majority of the people in this country, and most of them are poor. And the reality is that what she's talking about, the very change that we are introducing, is intended precisely to ensure that we are able to help the poor.
All right. When we return, we look at a farm here in the Cape where the farmer has decided to share his land with his workers.
To be honest, that there's an element of fear and guilt on all of us landowners' part. Maybe not all of us are willing to admit it. But I think when you face up to the history of what happened in this country, of how the land came to be in the possession of the privileged white elite that it is in the possession of, there's just no two ways about it. If we don't put it right ourselves, it eventually will be imposed on us in a way that will be far worse.
What example differ from the usual share ownership schemes that we see?
Thanks, it's great to be here. I think the main difference really is what Mark started on the farm together with Richard Astor as his partner later, was just to take responsibility themselves without any form of outside support other than commercial funding, which they secured themselves, and to just cut across, from a practical perspective, all this red tape and just make sure that they put in place a structure that allowed for joint ownership between the three parties, which was the two of them, together with the trust representing our disadvantaged workers and the residents as well. And then making sure that all the changes that we implemented on the program, we started before we became profitable, and facilitating funding for that, again, off our own bat. We've had very little outside funding. I think the main thing is just to make it happen yourself.
This sounds good to me. The workers have, their kids have good education, they've got quality health care, they have DSTV.
I just heard somebody in the audience saying that that's a huyelani, like some sort of a nice master. The point is this: we can't have a land reform process based on charity, goodwill, few farmers when they want, when they feel like they will be good to their people. No, it cannot be based on this. It is a national responsibility of this government to do it, not to punish anyone.
But Andile, you're criticizing everything. Everything is not good enough. Here is somebody who's trying to do something. They own that farm. The bond is in both of their names. If that thing does not work out, everybody, including the farm owner, is going to suffer along with the worker.
This is not a model that can be followed. This is not a pilot that can be followed at all. It's not going to work. If you think about it, works. You don't want it to
give him a chance.
If you think about,
let's give him a chance. Let's give him a chance.
The problem is that you have slave masters like yourself, who now we say we must surrender a land reform program to slave. No, but listen, you see, that's the problem. Here in the Durance, you can't afford to pay farm workers a little bit to live, and you say we must surrender land reform program. By the way, let's go back to what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a property that you have no right to. This is stolen property. This is number one. This is number one. Number two, we can't have a reform process based on charity. This is an insult to our people because this is our land. Our government, unfortunately, this government will not do it. And so people like Mark, of course, it's a good thing to hear here and there. We're doing good. We're taking care of our children and our workers and so on. But this is not real dignity for a people. We want to feel as citizens here, not dependent on the goodwill of these guys.
you are trying to tell us that the Zimbabwean model is successful. Yes. So why is it that most of the Zimbabwean people doesn't stay in Zimbabwe and has to work outside of Zimbabwe if that model is so successful? Thank you.
Fair enough. Angela, answer? If we can give Angela a chance to respond. Angela?
No, but this is very interesting. You know, the Zimbabwean economy was attacked by outsiders, by the white world, as soon as Mugabe and ZANU-PF redistributed land. The economic crisis, not of the making of Zimbabwe, it was made by global forces in defense of white people. That's what happened with the Zimbabwean economy, right? So, but now we know, like Professor Benskazen is telling us, things have changed in Zimbabwe. And the good thing is this. Zimbabwean people own their country. Here we starve, and black people starve here, and there's no crisis.
But Angela, fair enough, but let's not forget that Mugabe did commit human rights abuses.
Look, there were problems in Zimbabwe, big problems. There were big problems in Zimbabwe, but these problems were not just the creation of Mugabe. What will you do in your country when you return land? You find yourself that your currency is under attack, your economy is under attack, sanctions are being brought. Basically, Zimbabwe, the white world wants Zimbabwe to fail. Because if it succeeds, then black people everywhere will say, we want land so that we can live like free people.
We're heading towards a Zimbabwe situation, aren't we?
Not necessarily. We shouldn't be going that route. We will do it, by the way. The government will do it. And
when are you going to do it, is the question from the room.
It is important the government has to play a critical role in facilitating access to land by the majority of people in this country. And this is one message the ANC has made it clear to them. There is no question. We are already in the process, in consultation, not only with farmers, with farm workers, but we are also every morning, Siki, demonstrating, showing instances of success on the ground that involved poor people who are back on their land.
When we return, we're going to hear the last word from our land reform threaten our future. What do you think? Well, let's hear a final word from our audience, and then we'll hear from our panel.
To the people of this area, what needs to happen for all of you? You need to be willing to die in order to change things for this country.
This is really a big debate, and I'm hearing all sorts of things. We're hearing people want land, people want productive land, people want higher salaries, people want all sorts of things. We're 51 million people in this country, and if every individual wants something different, we're never going to get any progress on land reform.
Deputy Minister, I say now in this audience, if we are not going to get land by next year, this land going to be like Zimbabwe, because we are suffering, we are suffering, we are suffering.
Augustus maand 1947 word my oupa van sy grond afkom sit. Op daai stadium boer my oupa met 200 skape wat in daai tyd 'n baie goeie voorstemende boer was. En hy het diefstal. Dames en here, hy skryf 'n destydse brief aan die destydse departement van lande hier in Kaapstad. En hulle sê meneer Steenkamp, ons kan niks aan jou saak doen. 'n Paar dae daarna, dames en here, sterf hy aan 'n hartaanval. Oor daai grond pyn my hart vandag nog.
We are sitting and we are failing on this piece of land because commercial agriculture are taking all the water, you see. But the government don't want to listen. They are so arrogant because they are part of capitalists in this country and they support the capitalist system. Thank you very much.
Minister, I'm born in the Dorings.
Yes, you are from the Dorings.
I'm a councillor in the Dorings.
Yes.
And I'm also the chairperson of the Boland ANC in this region. Before the 1913 Land Act, it was free for all. Yes. The land was grabbed by the whites, Mugabean style. Mugabean style. Yes. Now, it's wrong now to reclaim our land Mugabean style, Minister.
100 years ago, people signed 99-year leases, and the government of today renewed it in Stellenbosch. We got record of it. We want that to be investigated, Mr. Minister. Can you go back to your books, to all farms that was given 100 years ago, and give it back to the people it belonged to?
I think let's get a final response.
Well, guys, I told you that I would be back at the end of this particular video here. But of course, it's really the end. I had to cut this particular part of it because we are going to go episodic. Emotions are rising, tempers are rising, and everybody wants a piece of the cake. Now, how should this happen in South Africa? And is the land reform in South Africa a threat to some people, to the minority, the haves? And the have-nots, on the other end, they are wrangling in poverty. But again, there is one sentiment that I've just heard from the gentleman who've just made his, case, that you see that particular pact that was signed, with the land ownership, like there's a pact of 99, a tenure, at least period of 99 years. Then once that particular pact is over, it is being renewed. Now, to some extent, it looks like that there's some capitalists, owners have made it to the point whereby it's not even 99. It's just a lifetime kind of a thing, and they don't, or unless maybe they've pacted with the government of the day, to see that there are not questions, or that particular part is just, overlooked, and the people are just moving on nicely as if everything is working. If that particular land pact of 99 years is maybe be seen, then most of the people have to realize that they really do not own this particular land, but rather the government, the land is state owned, and therefore they do not to sit on large tracts of land lying idle, rather than giving it out to people who can put that land into meaningful use. But again, guys, it has always my humble opinion. I also do stand corrected. Do drop me your comments in the comment section, guys. You've been very successful, guys. It is through you that we have come out to this particular point, and in the near future I've got a very big program. I've got something in store. Did I say that? Okay, good, I did. I've got a program. Okay, I've got something that is installed that I'm organizing, putting up things together here and there, thoughts, and finally we're going to have a very comprehensive system. So we're not going to be doing things like this. This is so local, but at that particular moment, I would really need your support. I would really need, maybe if you listen up to this particular very end, working on some few things here, and the logistics, on the communications, the infrastructure, the tools of trying to set this thing out. And we're gonna do it featuring different countries in Africa. We're not going just only to be limited in South Africa. So guys, if you've been following and you've been there, so let me know that one through the comment section. You never know. Stay safe.